Hey everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. This is Wendy, and today we're going to be doing another in our series of winter DIYs from Dollar Tree. And so to start with, we're going to be making a sign, and I'm using a pizza pan that you guys have seen probably a million times, a baby blanket, the buffalo check in grays and whites, and some Q-tips for a flower that we're going to be making, some of the raffia that you can get in a package of 3, some pretty low gauge wire. They sell the one on the right at the Dollar Tree, but it gets my hands dirty. I don't know why. It's a steel wire, so I had some on hand, but it's about a 20 gauge. Some burlap ribbon, as well as some blue painter's tape for masking. And from Walmart, I got this lamb's ear for $2 a bunch. We're actually not going to use very much, but just to show you, this is a really good buy for just $2. Some Waverly White chalk paint and some black acrylic paint. We're going to be making some grays, so we'll mix those. Your glue gun, scissors, a ruler, and then I'll be using the Silhouette Cameo 3, so I'll need the vinyl in gray and white. And so the first thing I'm going to do is paint my pizza plate or pizza pan, and I want to make it a gray that works with the buffalo check blanket. So I added some black a little at a time to come up with the right shade of gray that works with the blanket, and then I just painted the entire pizza pan. So you guys have heard me tell you before that I am not a great painter by any means, and so I would recommend that you do thinner coats and just do more of them so that you get a nice flat finish. And in between drying time, I put my brushes into a Ziploc baggie so that I can just reuse them. So now I'm just going to make a little circle on a piece of construction paper and cut 12-inch pieces of that 20 gauge wire, and the circle is just to give me a little bit of a template to make what is going to be petals of a flower. And I just wrapped it around, kind of using that outline as a gauge, and then twist the end so that you have a little petal. So I made 5 of these, and then what I'm going to do is hot glue each of the wires to a small piece of the buffalo check blanket. And so I cut a little square, and actually I think this was a scrap piece, and just put the glue right onto the metal or the wire, and then place it onto the buffalo check. And I wanted to make sure that there were more than one square, more than one square showing, so I kind of put it in between the squares of the buffalo check. So I just did that for all 5 of the petals, and then once I get them dry and onto the blanket, I'm going to cut around, leaving about a 1/4 of an inch excess, beyond the wire. So then I'll be able to glue and fold over those edges onto more hot glue. So now that I have all 5 of the petals done, I'm going to assemble my flower, and I'm using 3 of the Q-tips, and I'm gonna just kind of place them together and then overlap each of the petals. And at the end, when I'm done, I'm going to take one of the wires that I used for the petals and wrap that around the entire piece to keep it all in place. So now I'm going to cut out my words using my Silhouette Cameo 3, and I just put it on the same settings where it's vinyl matte and cut, and then do that in both the white and the gray. So now by the time I've got all of that done, my gray paint is dry and I'm able to make a line going across about 3/4 of the way down, and I'm making this a 4-inch line so that I can fit my second word, which is cuddle, because it's going to say let's cuddle. So I just used my blue painter's tape and measured all the way across to make sure that it was 4 inches all the way across. And it's a little tricky because it's a round pan and it's got that lip on the end, but it works out and you can figure it out, I'm sure. And so I want to make sure that my edges are very adhered so that I don't have any bleeding. Again, on this part, I'm not a good painter whatsoever, so I should have done a lot thinner coats because it does have a little bumps here and there, but it's okay. It doesn't look bad by any means, but it still could have been better, and I could have taken more time on it, but I am learning my lessons as we go. So, I also love to see tape come off of paint when it's done, and so this is no exception. And I think there are pretty clean lines except for a couple of places which I just touched up using that same gray paint to cover that up. So now once I've got that all done and ready to go, I'm going to take some of my blanket, and here's where I'm trying to show you how there's two ways that the grain will go. You have against the grain and with the grain, and when you go with the grain, it has a tendency to kind of pull apart because it's not great quality fabric. So going against the grain, I cut a long piece of the buffalo check and I made it 2 squares. So that's about 2.5 inches or so, but I pieced them together because what I'm going to be doing is making some wired ribbon. And I always love using ribbon in everything I do, but not having this color, I didn't want to use any white or anything that, wouldn't go with it very well. So I just decided to make my own. So it gets easier as you go. Now this wire is like 22 gauge or maybe even 26 gauge. I can't remember, but I'm just gluing it a little bit at a time, and you have to use these little rubber thimbles because you will get glue on you and it will burn. So just to protect yourself, use the rubber thimbles and just roll those edges over. The fabric itself is very forgiving, so if you're not even, it totally doesn't matter. It doesn't show whatsoever, but this is one way to get wired edged ribbon if you don't have any. And this is one way that you can incorporate any kind of material or fabric that you have that goes with a certain room or something, and you don't have any ribbon to coordinate it with. Just make your own in whatever fabric you have, and it's super easy. So now I'm making a bow, and I'm using what's called the Olivia bow, and this is from Olivia's Romantic Home. She does so many awesome things, and this is the way she makes her ribbons. And it's a little tough right here to cut through the wire, but she makes little slits after folding over her ribbon that's one-sided, and you do that 3 times on each side, and then through those slits you put your chenille stem through it and twist it in the back, and then pull apart the loops to make your bow. So now I'm going to add some raffia to the bow, and I just took a long piece and measured about how wide I wanted it to be and just looped it together and made a bow, and tied it together with another piece of the raffia and then tied that to the Olivia bow. And I'm actually going to put a link to her channel in the description box below so you guys can check her out for sure. Now I'm adding the sweet little flower that we made to that whole piece, and then setting it aside so that I can put my words onto the pan. And so I did all the weeding, and now I am putting the lets up toward the top left, and then using my squeegee I'm going to get that down. But because it's still maybe not exactly dry, I just kind of push down on the letters and not so much going all across with my squeegee. So just be careful with that. And then doing the same thing, I'm going to take the cuddle and put that on the white stripe. Now this will be available in my Etsy shop, so you can find that on it's Etsy. White Sparrow Living is the name of my shop. So I just stuck the cuddle in the middle of that white stripe, and then I'm going to attach my bow to the upper right hand side. So now I'm going to take my lamb's ear and just pull off a couple of the leaves and tuck those under using hot glue and push those down. I did 2 on one side and 1 on the other. And then I'm also going to add some of that burlap ribbon and just make little tails with the dovetail cut. And using hot glue, I just tuck those in and let those stick out up towards the top. So to make a hanger, I took a chenille stem and just put some hot glue down, and then took a piece of burlap ribbon to cover that up. Now, because of the heaviness of the bow, I put this in the wrong spot, so I'm ending up not using it as a hanging piece. I'm going to use a Dollar Tree plate stand and put it displayed on a tabletop or countertop. You'll see that in a second. But if you do decide to hang it, make sure that you put the hanging portion in a place where it will hang with the weight of the flower so that it's centered and not crooked. So here it is, all done. I am superly in love with this. I love the flower and the message, and I think this would be really cute in a bedroom. I don't think it looks like a pizza pan whatsoever. I'm sorry about the bad painting job, but you guys do a better job, I'm sure. And so I hope you guys like this. So for our next project, I got these mugs from Dollar Tree, and they have the flat sides, so it makes it a lot easier to work with. They're not rounded. We're actually going to be doing 2 different DIYs with them. So on this one, we're going to be using some of the baby blanket. You just need scissors, a ruler, and a needle and thread, and 2 white buttons. I just had these in my stash. And so the first thing we're going to do is measure 2 inches and make a strip 2 by 13 inches. And so again, this fabric is very forgiving, so if it's a little crooked, it doesn't even matter. But I first made a little fold over to give it a finished edge on the wrapping, and it's going to be a little cup cozy, I guess. So I'm figuring out where I'm going to place my button, and then using that needle and thread, I doubled over my thread and put a knot at the end. And you have to make kind of a big knot because this fabric is kind of loose in its grain, but I stitched on the button and I did a crisscross pattern, and I did that about 5 times or so. Then to finish it off in the back, you just make a small stitch and then leave a little loop and pass your needle back through it, and you do that 2 times so that it stays in place. Now I'm going to figure out where to put my hole for the button, and so I just made a tiny slit in the fabric and pulled that over the button. And don't make a slit the size of an actual buttonhole, because that'll be too big. So here they are, and I think they're super sweet and gives just a little bit of embellishment to a plain mug. So for $2 and scraps, you have cute little mug cozies for your hot cocoa bar. Now, using those same mugs, I'm gonna use my Silhouette Cameo 3 to print out some words, and I have warm hugs and warm hearts, and I'm using the font The Skinny, which you can download from dafont.com, and I just put it on cut and vinyl mat and cut these out. These also will be available in my Etsy shop, and all of the weeding and taking off the vinyl, that's all done for you. So when you get it, the transfer tape is already on there. All you have to do is apply it to your surface of whatever project you're doing. So I'm just pulling off the backing and then placing it onto the mugs, and transfer it with the squeegee, and then pull off the transfer tape. And here they are all done, and I think they turned out super cute. And if you like the Ray Dunn style, I think instead of paying $8 per cup, I think $2 works pretty well. Here's a little preview of our next project with the bowls and how they'll turn out. And I made another buffalo check flower, so I set that there for this little setup. But I think it's really cute, and I hope you guys like it. So now to make the bowls, I just went through the same process and cut out the words on my Silhouette Cameo 3. And I turned the bowl upside down because it does have a rounded edge. It wasn't too much so that I had to make slits or anything, but it just makes it easier to get it level and not crooked. So I did that for all 4. And then to make the setup that you saw, I'm using some lamb's ear. These magnetic tins, I bought 3 sets of those. I'm actually using that in another DIY, but these are just going to be temporary lifters for the display. So just taking those little canisters, I placed them in the bowl upside down so that you could stack them and you'd be able to read the words with them stacked. And then I'm going to take some of that lamb's ear and cut little sprigs of it and tuck it into the bowl. They were kind of just flopping around in there, so I decided to take some of the batting snow stuff and tuck that in there first, and then put the lamb's ear in so that it stayed. I think this is a really cute display to put on your kitchen countertop, and you can use the bowls, and the vinyl is supposed to be dishwasher safe. I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't tested it, but I would just hand wash them. And so in the meantime, you can just have them displayed for your winter decor. for our final project, we're going to be using this cutting board, again from the Dollar Tree. And all I'm going to do is measure the opening, and I'm going to use my Silhouette Cameo 3 to put I Am the Bread of Life. And I used 3 different fonts on this. For the I Am the and of, I used Amaral. And then for Bread and Life, I used Amalfi Coast. And for John 6:35, I used Lucida Grande. So again, this will be available in my Etsy shop as well. And then just to incorporate some more of the baby blanket, I cut a little strip and tied it to the top. And then I'm going to add one of the little pom-poms that we made in a previous DIY. And I'll link that video below for you in case you missed it. And I just tied it on the back, and I tied it in a bow so that if I want to take it off and use it for something else, I can. And then guess what I'm going to do with the ends of the little ribbon? You guessed it, I'm going to dovetail those just to give it a finishing touch. I am absolutely loving this buffalo check in the gray and white, and I know I said this was going to be the last in this winter series, but I do have one more coming up, so I hope you guys will stay tuned for that. If you'd like to see more of these videos, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel, and if you have previously subscribed, you might want to check it again to see if you are, because apparently YouTube did what's called a subscriber dump. And so I don't know what that means, but just check to make sure that you are subscribed, even if you've already done it before. So also there's a bell that you can push that will notify you every time I put out a new video. So feel free to push that as well. And leave me a comment. If you liked it, push that thumbs up. There's a lot of things to push, you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye.